If you're an entrepreneur out there, if you're an operator, if you're thinking being disruptive, innovating, create a national brand, a global brand, you got to understand that it could take 5, 10, 15 years. And you got to be willing to just stay committed to that process.
Welcome back to the Fitt Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Veneri. Today I'm joined by Brandon Marshall, founder and CEO at House of Athlete. In this episode, we discuss how Brandon's 13-year NFL career led him to the fitness industry. We talk about HOA's pillars of performance, including a focus on mental health and community. Plus, Brandon shares his vision for building a category-defining brand. Let's get into it. The Fitt Insider Podcast is brought to you by Jack Taylor, our exclusive PR partner. More than just PR, they're creative storytellers and brand builders who actually understand the health and wellness industry. Learn more and get in touch at jacktaylorpr.com. Brandon, welcome to Fitt Insider. Thanks for joining us.
This is big. I finally got invited to the great Fitt Insider podcast. I've been waiting for this moment. If you make this podcast, your ass is doing something special.
You are. You got too much going on. I appreciate you saying that. We've kind of chatted before, social media, through PR. I don't think you need no introduction. 13 years in the NFL, now building, an expansive media empire, fitness empire. I think maybe more importantly, Pittsburgher. I'm sitting in Pittsburgh, outside of Pittsburgh right now.
Love you.
Yeah, man. So lots to get into, but maybe just to kick things off for this audience, tell us a little bit about House of Athlete, where you are with kind of building this brand and expanding, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah. House of Athlete's a lifestyle wellness brand. And I say that, when you talk about brand, you say lifestyle, that means multiple opportunities and multiple directions we can go. So I think about, where we can be, in 3 to 5 years, brand extension, brand expansion, introducing new products. And the reason why I believe this is a real opportunity for us, and I'm super confident about it, is because we own the name House of Athlete. Everything starts with the brand. 2, we are one of the most authentic brands in this space when it comes to actually performance. We train some of the top athletes in the world. So we have a brand, we have partners, marketing partners and athletes. We have the credibility because we train the athletes. We're the healthiest people on the planet, right? So if we're the healthiest people on the planet, we have a brand, we train some of the top athletes, can we potentially, morph into supplements? Can we potentially morph into performance? How do we participate when it comes to technology and data and analytics and being able to track these things and learn from these things? So House of Athletes is a lifestyle wellness brand. As of right now, we have 2 locations. I've always said from the beginning, and anybody that come in and partner with me, work with me, we have to win on the field first before we can even get into, really scaling supplements, really scaling apparel or, education. Like, we should be the thought leaders in the space. But what we have to do right now, we have to continue to get the top athletes in and continue to give them make sure they get the results that they're looking for plus some, right? And that's just good old roll up your sleeves, Pittsburgh blue collar work. Like, get these guys in and make sure that they're jumping higher, they're running faster, they're recovering faster. They know how to recover. So a lot of work to do for sure. But I feel really good about where we're at today.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. It makes a ton of sense when you think about, like, you're the shining example of this. You got yourself in the best condition and performance that you could be, competed at the highest level for years, and better than anybody else what it takes to build this type of mentality, this type of work ethic, this type of ultimately brand that's now you're continuing to launch. When you're playing in the league, and the fitness and performance aspect is just part of it. You have to keep yourself at the kind of highest level of conditioning, and then as you start to think about what your career looks like off the field, at what point were you like, hey, this is the logical extension of that? Like, this is a part of who I am. I can build a brand around this. I can bring the team together to build House of Athlete. How long ago did that kind of start? And then when were you able to kind of actually ramp it up and start building the company?
Yeah, I mean, you guys sit down with some legendary founders and CEOs in this space, and as you know, nothing happens overnight. So it's a process and it's a journey. And along their journey, there's so many different times where you evolve and you change and you morph into something different. So I would say that there's been multiple phases of House of Athlete before the name House of Athlete even exists or the brand. I was doing this back in 2011 when I was entering the prime of my career. I opened up my first facility, right? So back then it was different. It was just a passion thing. It was a necessity. I needed a place to train. I wanted to work with some of the best in class in one space. I didn't want to work with Matt Gates in Weston, Florida at the CrossFit facility doing my actual lifting and then go to Tequesta Park Trace, the football field, and do my movement drills and then go back to my house and bring in a chiropractor, bring in a massage therapist, bring in dry needling specialist, and all the other gurus in the space, whether MAT, ART, and so many others. I wanted it all in one place, all integrated, because that was the pro athlete experience. When I walked into the Jets facility or the Chicago Bears facility, everything was there and it was easy. And it wasn't all of these other upcharges, right? Like in the industry that what you see, you come in and you want to put on the Normatec boots or the Therabody boots, and they're actually charging you, $50 an hour or $50 every 30 minutes. Like these things cost $1,500. And these are the things that we do every single day in the locker room or in the training room. So I wanted to take my experience, my 13 years experience in the National Football League, and give that to not only the pro athletes at the highest level, but the fit gen population. Like that was the goal. When it really became real for me, 2011, we started this. 2014, I spent my entire offseason at Harvard building out this case study on transition. And what came out of it for me was my love and desire in the mental health space. And so you had that from a business perspective, but what was going on with me personally, I was actually morphing from, a football player to, a champion for mental health and, really doing some big things in the nonprofit world. And so the nonprofit world started to change as well. It went from impairment, mental health, to mental fitness, which is more performance, right? And so that's where I start looking at the mental health aspect and component a little bit differently. And I start thinking about, well, maybe it's easier on the other side of the spectrum. When you deal with impairment and when you deal with, mental health and diagnosis and all of that hospital and clinical stuff, it's a harder conversation. It's hard to get the work done. But when you start talking about performance, you start talking about losing weight, getting in shape, all those things, and start the conversation around wellness and your mental and your brain, it's so much easier. And so in 2018, that's when it became real for me. So I know I took you on a bit of a journey, but it is a journey, right? And so, like, what I Am Athlete and House of Athlete is today is not what it was yesterday, and it's not what it's going to be tomorrow. As long as we understand where our star is and what the mission is and stay true to that and stay purpose driven, it could come in so many different shapes. So in 2018, I actually experienced what I wanted to in House of Athlete, and it was called Fit Speed at the time. What I experienced this night on this particular evening is what I wanted to experience in the mental health space and for 10 years, right? And it was like that feeling of people coming into a space and being transformed holistically. And so when I experienced that, that's when I was like, holy shit, like this is it, right? Like for real, because I thought I was going to do clinical work. I thought I was going to do nonprofit work. I thought I was going in business. I thought I was going to get into, being an angel investor, right? I invested in Tonal before it was Tonal, Rip Labs, and made a few other investments, had a few exits, right? So like that's when it became real for me in 2018. And haven't looked back since, bro.
Yeah,
Because
man,
like
it's
and it's the
incredible.
last thing I would say here to this to wrap up this point, and it's when you study some of the top athletes in the world, Serena Williams, Tom Brady's of the world, the LeBron James of the world, the Naomi Osaka's of the world, athletes, they master the fundamentals. They have a routine in place. So our five pillars, are centered around one, train. We were all created to train. Our second was fuel. Do you have a plan on how you approach the play? It could be different for everyone, case by case basis, but we had to be able to have those conversations and be able to provide some services in that area, or you won't hit your goal, right? The third is mental fitness, right? Like, what is your mental fitness level? You can be on both ends of the spectrum dealing with impairment or performance. The fourth is recover. It's important for us to understand how to recover. Sometimes it's just making sure you're properly hydrated. Body is made up of almost 80% water. Like, performance decreases by 25-30% if you're dehydrated. So fundamentals, you see athletes carrying jugs. Can we teach the rest of the world to do that? Sleep is like a secret weapon. It's studies that show if you get the right amount of sleep consistently, it actually feels like you're actually on steroids, right? Like, it's that good, and we overlook the fundamentals. And the last is tribe. I've never seen a professional athlete make it to the top, Joe, without a team of gurus around them.
Yeah, man, all that, and you did take us on a journey, but I think it's so important. I appreciate you, sharing that because a lot of times I think from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, you had resources, you had connections, and not you, but athletes in general, right? And you could make some of these things happen, but you going through that, it's very clear that it's personal to you. It also has so much to do with, as you said, your personal journey with mental health, but also being an advocate and speaking out about it, and really how it shaped this overall. I think where the market has kind of come to now, but you were there all along and you went on this journey to figure it out firsthand of holistic performance. That it's not just, I think when other people talk about it, it's like it's a buzzword or it's something that they're trying to piece together and maybe figure out where the demand is for it. And you're just like, no, this is what it is. This is what I experienced. This is how I came to it.
Yeah, like new movements equals new language, right? So which is why you hear me say mental fitness instead of mental health. And even what you just said, holistic, that's not a thing for the athlete. What do you mean holistic performance, right? For us, we get up every single day and it's just a part of our routine. We know we need to take care of our mind, right? And some athletes don't even know they're doing it, but it could be in the form of performance where you're sitting down with a sports psychologist, where you're meditating, where you're practicing visualization therapy or mindfulness, right? Being centered. How do you get in the zone? So even that, it's like people think it's this robust, challenging thing to wrap your head around. And it's really simple. It's the fundamentals. If you want to be great at who you are, unlock your full potential, lean into the fundamentals. That's it. That's it. Simple. But it takes all of it. And that's where the holistic approach comes in. It's not just like training, it's how you eat matters. How you sleep matters. What you put in your body matters. How you recover matters. All of that. And it pushes you to one thing, the better version of yourself. Weekend warrior, professional athlete, attorney, doctor, nurse, it doesn't matter. At home mom, at home dad. That's it. And here's the other thing, too, Joe. I'll tell you this from a performance standpoint and also how I approach House of Athlete, it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone because there's a commitment when you become an athlete. There's a sacrifice when you become an athlete. I'm not here to speak to the person that don't want to be spoken to. I'm here speaking to people who want to get in shape, who want to lean out, who want to bulk up, who want to feel better, who want to live better, who don't want to live in pain, train in pain. It's a waste of time talking to the other folks. It might be a smaller demographic and market, but that's what it is. Sports isn't for everyone. High performing is not for everyone. I don't want to work with people that just want to go through life just being like, and it's fine. There's some people that's like, listen, I have enough. I just want to sit on my porch. I want to barbecue. I want to drink beer and I just want to enjoy the sunsets. Fine. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. We actually need that balance in this world. Who we are speaking to as high performers and House of Athletes is I want a little bit more out of life. I want a little bit more out of my mind. I want to be a better manager, you know? And it's not about what we can collect. It's just about what we, can bring to the world and feel better. It's like I'm passionate about it, obviously. I don't want to hijack our hour. So I'm gonna throw it back to you.
Hey everyone, we'll get you back to the show in just a second. But first, I wanted to tell you about our exclusive PR partner, Jack Taylor. Honestly, this one's a no brainer. We've known the Jack Taylor team for years. They work with some of the most innovative health and wellness companies. We're talking Whoop, Athletic Greens, Hyperice, and many more. Jack Taylor has an extensive industry network knows how to work with high growth companies and really invest in building long term relationships. I know this firsthand because they're Fit Insider's PR agency, so I can confidently recommend them, and I do all the time. From startups to more established brands, they go beyond pushing product to help companies truly thrive. If you want to learn more, head to jacktaylorpr.com and tell them Fit Insider sent you. Now, back to the show. No, man. And I appreciate that. It was one of the things that I was going to ask you because I think when you think of, you mentioned one of the kind of pillars and focus of House of Athlete is brand and that being so strong. And a lot of companies sit back and they're like, oh, we're building a brand. Our brand is aspirational. It's this, it's that, and whatever those elements are. And of course, that's going to be an important aspect of it. But when you say athlete and you put that athlete in the name and it's built by an athlete for athletes, it gets to this point of like, how do you, and you spoke to it a little bit there, right? Like who it's for, who is an athlete? What does it mean to be a high performer? Is that something that you kind of think about conveying that message to people when they come through? If they're, I guess I'm saying if they're not a professional athlete and they're not doing this in training, is it like, and they know they're trying to strive and reach something and you're pushing them? Or is it, something that becomes obvious to them when they step in and they see everybody else getting after it? And I guess what I'm getting at is how are you thinking about that marketing piece of it to appeal to those people and attract those people? And whether it's word of mouth, the referrals, or the experience that they get in when you're there, and how is communicated to them as they're like striving towards these goals to say, like, if you are pushing yourself, if you do want to achieve things, if you are willing to put in the work, like you are an athlete. And that's what this means to us.
That's right. So there's a few things here. One, this is the part of business that I absolutely hate because I don't want to sell anything to anybody, right? This is my purpose. This is my life's work. Two, it actually is an area that I thrive in and I'm super savvy and I get it, right? So there's toil every single day because what I just want to do is be able to look in the camera or look someone in the eyes and say, listen, if you want to feel better, if you want to lose weight, if you want to get in shape, if you want to live stronger, do these things. Lean into these 5 pillars. Just show up 4 times a week and embrace the program, and you're going to be exactly where you need to be, right? It's not perfect, but you'll be exactly where you need to be, right? How do we unlock your full potential? So the way I go about doing it from a business perspective, right? It's one, win on the field first. It's phases. So over the last 2 years, so the first thing I did when I was cut from the New Orleans Saints in 2018, I came home and I said, okay, I got to create stability. I've been doing this for a long time, right? And we're not profitable and I'm tired of dumping money into this idea. And so we were chasing the pro athletes, but the average stay of a pro athlete is 4.5 weeks. So if you look at your business over a year, you have these like very volatile turns where it's like you're making a lot of money, then you're not, right? And then you're barely hanging on. So what I did first is kind of laid the foundation and I worked on our boutique fitness experience from every touch point when you got out of your car, when you drove into our parking lot, what were you experiencing? What were you feeling? So we went from 24 paying members. This was right before the pandemic. We went from 24 paying adult fitness members to literally 300 within 45 days. So I went from $11,950 a month to $70,000 a month just in that. So I was like, okay, this at least covers us. So now we establish our routine and our flow there. And then what we start doing is focus on our number one thing, and that's the pro athletes. I had to win on the field, have to win on the court. How do we get athletes in? So we built a new facility, all the greatest amenities, and then we brought in some of the best coaches. And then we started attracting some of those high caliber athletes. That's credibility. So now this dance that we do is you go to HOA performance page, like I'm speaking to a different demographic and a different audience. That's athletes, youth athletes from 12 to our all pro athletes and all star athletes in the NBA and the NFL. There's a lot of energy, there's a lot of hype, right? And it's entertainment, right? So we do that there. And then we sprinkle in the science showing like, if you do this over 6 weeks, you're going to get this. On the House of Athletes side is where we lean into our member stories and our members' testimonials. That's how we're speaking to them. This is where the athletes train. So you're seeing some of that content appear on the House of Athlete page, but we're telling more of our member stories. So our content is actually made up of 70% of our members on the House of Athlete page. You're not seeing the Stephon Diggs, the Justin Jeffersons, or the Ja Morants really show up on that page. You're seeing yourself in House of Athlete, right? And it's just the language of it, right? Train like an athlete, recover like an athlete. This is where the athletes train. These same coaches that train you or train them trains you. And this is the reality.
I think a huge piece of that, it's like jumps through the screen as we're talking is how deep you are in it, how passionate you are about it. I mean, I know that from the outside, just kind of how committed you are to the brand, to this lifestyle, to embetterment, to performance. But I think a lot of times when you, especially like pro athletes that are now getting into business ventures, like they have a team that runs it, and we can talk about your team and the things that go into it. But it sounds like right down to the copy on the website, you're scrutinizing every little piece of it.
Everything.
How do you manage that time? How do you stay engaged? Is it even, I mean, based on what you've said thus far, it's like not even an option. You're just so deep in it and committed to it that you wouldn't have it any other way. But I think from the maybe the operator owner perspective, like how do you manage it? How do you prioritize and delegate to like keep this thing running?
Yeah. I would say it's a journey and I'm learning how to manage managers, right? It's all about team. I was just thinking about this the other day. For the first year, we implemented on Wednesdays, there's no training. We lean into our third pillar, mental fitness. We have mental practitioners on site. It's focus groups are really our group therapy where we bring in professionals, but then we have our members. That's the way they sign up for a base class or an altitude class. They sign up for a mental fitness class as well, and we literally sit in a circle and have these type of conversations. And we take them on a journey there. You have recovery rituals, you have yoga, and this whole experience on Wednesday to really reset, recover, and then also train and develop your mind and your brain. The first year, I taught every single class on Wednesday. Like I can walk in and I can feel it. Like, okay, the volume on the music is too low. Okay, the scent, the aroma, like where is it? The pitch level of my coaches, like your tone. I don't really feel you. Like I had a yoga instructor I was talking to a couple weeks ago. I took her class and I said, what you were saying, I didn't feel because what you were saying, you were trying to speak life over me and the other members, athletes in this class, this particular class, but you were walking around trying to turn on the lights and trying to correct this and correct that. So you didn't really care. You weren't present with me. So I feel everything. And that's what I say with my team. Like I'm a feel guy. Like I can walk in and feel the energy. I can feel if it's off. I can just feel it like from an experience standpoint. So I was in it for the first couple of years down to the CRM, understanding my KPIs and metrics, what I'm tracking, what makes sense. I can look at, okay, my leads are there, my conversions there, but I'm losing, my churn is too high. So that means it's a product thing, it's a people thing. I can look at leads are down, my retention's there, conversions there, retention's there. So now I have a marketing challenge, right? So like from marketing to the CRM to systems to management, I get it, I understand that, and down to the experience. Now I'm in a place now where I have Becca, my COO, I have Bianca, I have a head of performance, a head of fitness, and I literally just check in with them once a week because I know what it's supposed to feel like. I know the experience, and I can just look at the data and look at the numbers and see if it's working. Right there, we had one challenge in our company not too long ago where we weren't growing from a PT standpoint, one on ones. And I'm looking at the numbers and I said, guys, we've been stuck for 12 months. It's time to now shift and focus on these things. And immediately we changed some things there. We changed some things from a IB experience, and numbers are through the roof, right? Or just trending in the right direction. So it's really knowing your business and understanding your product and listening to your members as well. Like I listen a lot. I walk in and my team hates it, but if a member tells me something, I'm acting on it and I'm trying to create that culture. Nordstrom's does a lot of that. You study a lot of Nordstrom's where like, look, guys, like I'm always with you, my team. Do what's best for the athlete, and we'll talk about it after. Maybe we put together a new SOP, but go with your heart, go with your gut, and then we'll figure out the rest. But if you're always trying to do what's best for the athlete, we always win.
It's so important. I think there's a lot of things that you're touching on from the authenticity to the being immersed in it, putting yourself in the shoes of the consumer, being an instructor yourself, actually going in and teaching classes. It's not something I talk about a ton on the podcast, but coming through the fitness industry, the yes, I grew up in playing sports and then being a personal trainer and group fitness instructor, but those experiences where actually in the gym, like on the weight floor, working with somebody hand in hand, understanding what goes into building better habits, making sacrifices, guiding them through that process. That's what informs the conversations I have today with other operators and
Mm.
technology companies, and why are the things that we're building now and investing, millions of dollars into not working? And it goes back to what that mom was experiencing in the gym when she was trying to get her habits in check. And like so many people overlook that, and you saying the willingness to like go in there and not only lead the classes, take them, but check in with members and say, what's good? How can we improve it? Like,
And that's why that's why I'm able to confidently look at you and say, "This is who House of Athletes for." Because you go in there and you're like, "Okay, this is what I'm trying to get them to experience and embrace." And it's really my experience and a lot of these pro athletes experience at the highest level when you walk in a facility and everything's integrated. And so I know what the member experience is supposed to be like. And I also understand what the athlete's mindset's supposed to be like, right? So when a member comes in and like, we want this, we want that. I'm like, well, that's not what the athlete's experience is. You can't walk into the Golden State Warriors facility and get that experience that you can't get that the Jets, you can't get that the Yankees. House of Athlete is an authentic, organic brand that was built off of the experience of the athlete. So it's simple for me and the team. Is like, well, can this show up at One Jet Drive, Florham Park, the Jets headquarters? And if the answer is no, then we don't do it. We don't lean into it. So I'm able to speak directly to my team on, who we are, who we're not. I'm also able to speak to, our athletes. Like not every athlete is built the same. Like if you don't have the mindset of like, I just want to perform at a better level and sustain success, then you're not the right athlete for, what we're providing. And what I try to teach my team as well is like, don't just take someone's credit card just to take their credit card, right? Because they're going to be pissed off anyways. Like, give them your professional recommendation, like as if you're a doctor, right? Hey, here's what I'm diagnosing you with, and here's the prognosis, right? Here's the prescription, excuse me. And if they don't fit that, it's like, oh, you just don't fit it. I'm okay with telling someone, I don't think this is for you, and here's 3 to 4 recommendations. Like there's some phenomenal boutique facilities and studios in the area, and I'll give them that list and I'm honest with them. And you know what I find? There's times where, not all the time, but there's times when I have that conversation with people and make them lean in even more. It's like, you're telling me you don't want to take my credit card. You're telling me it's not. No, because I don't think that you're willing to commit. You're saying that you want to be here in 6 months, but you're not willing to invest in yourself 3 to 4 days out of the week. Showing up once a week is not going to get the job done. Professional athletes as well. This is the conversation I have with them the most. Is like, if you're a guy that want to bounce from LA to Miami to Paris to like, this is not for you, because I know my coaches need at least 8 weeks with you to actually drive results. So
it's important. It's important being direct, but it's important, shooting them straight. And like you said, they probably come around anyway. They're like, oh man, he's
that's
telling me
right.
how it is. I better get my shit together. Um,
Right.
so now we're thinking about, we have the facilities, we're continuing to grow, we have those pillars in place, and I'm sure your mind is always going with what you want to build this into, what the vision is. I think more recently, the HOA Plus on the digital side, kind of rolling that out. Is that kind of the one of the focuses now, kind of scaling that up and seeing what you can do as that complements the in-person experience? What maybe from like a priority or even like roadmap is on your mind as you continue to build this thing?
Yeah, I mean, listen, now we're talking real business, right? Like big business here. We understand the environment right now, what's going on in the world with inflation. Are we in a recession? Are we not in a recession? Are people actually investing? I think this is the toughest time to be in this game, in this business, as far as from a venture standpoint. It's not a friendly environment right now. Things are actually, changing and there's light at the end of the tunnel for sure. But we're got to be scrappy over the next 12 to 18 months, right? I'm leaning into the brand. I'm leaning into the story. I'm leaning into my team. We're staying tight right here in Tampa and South Florida. We have goals and a roadmap in place to hit from a brick and mortar standpoint, Miami and LA. Now that solidifies it as a national brand. So we're extremely excited there. It just comes down to funding, right? And resources. Do we have the resources from a people standpoint, from a funding standpoint to actually get it done and get it done at a high level? And the answer is no right now. So we got to keep working there. HOA Plus allows us to touch our athletes more. It's going to morph into something much more robust. But right now, it's just the fundamentals, being able to program for our athletes, get them through the week in their workouts, nutritional coaching, the mental health, the mental fitness side of things, being able to touch them there, but it's definitely going to morph and evolve. So I would say right now we have a lot of traction there, but we're still in this learning phase and development stage. Like I love the product. I love what we're doing there, but you'll see us start to incorporate just a little bit more. We have a partnership with TB12, Tom Brady on the brick and mortar side. How do we grow into this tech space and the software space together? You got other athletes out there doing some big things in a wellness space. So there's a bunch of conversations we're having there. So what I'm looking at is House of Athlete is that house, but you got to put other things you got, into this house. And so there's other athletes doing some cool things. So I'm looking at us definitely disrupting this space, bringing to life a true total experience when it comes to performance. And I know I'm not the best in the world at everything, right? So you have to partner, you have to collab.
Yeah, that piece around, reaching the athletes when they're not in the gym is a huge part of it. And I think it was a great extension to be able to do something on the digital side, use it as a learning. I mean, it's funny to think about more recently, especially during the pandemic, you had this whole debate around, are people going to show up in person? Are gyms, dead? Are people going to work out at home? And obviously it's some combination of both. And some people
It's
prefer being
omni-channel now.
for sure.
That's
But
that's what that's what the athlete wants now. Go ahead.
even to the point, one of your pillars being tribe, you can't replicate that the same way on the digital experience, and having those people in there being with the coaches, interfacing with them, getting to know them. I think it was funny how quickly people were willing to overlook that from the kind of community and tribe standpoint. I thought it was awesome to hear about the kind of Wednesday, mental fitness days that you do. Do you program kind of community, social events, anything like that into it to build that tribe, or is it more organic, just given that people were in there, when you're working hard and sweating alongside somebody, it kind of naturally happens?
We do, but I have some amazing coaches and leaders from a brick and mortar standpoint that own it, right? Like my job is to define like who we are, core tenets, traits, mindset, and like intentionally infuse culture. But where culture really thrives is where you have your leaders and your captains take it and own it, right? So like when you ask about being intentional, there's the answer is yes, but from a corporate standpoint, we can be much better, right? I need more resources to do the things that I want to do when it comes to building our community even more. But what's really giving me more time is my coaches. I look up, if you see some of our content, they're bowling with our coaches and our athletes. They're on boats, right? They're going to dinner, right? They're hanging out. It's unbelievable. It's a true tribe. And I think some of the best brands, they're able to do that. Like if you want to scale, you have to have community, you have to have tribe, right? Soul Cycle, CrossFit, Rumble Boxing came and they got some good momentum early and hit some troubles right there during the pandemic, right before the pandemic. But there's some brands that really infuse like culture and community at a high level. And so we have to get better from a corporate standpoint, but from a brick and mortar standpoint, my coaches absolutely own it. And I couldn't be prouder.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. You can't. It's not something you can fake. It's like brand, the
Yeah.
community piece. It's like people know when it's real.
Yeah. And one of the things my coaches and I tell them, like, man, that we can't be afraid to fail. right? And you got to build a culture that will push the limits. Like I'm looking for creativity and innovation. Something simple happened a few weeks ago. Jordan Shallow and Shannon McMullen put together like a class for our members on squatting, and it was literally a classroom setting, and we were going through the art of squat, the technique. It was waitlisted. I never thought about doing that right now, but they said they had this idea, didn't need a big budget, said go, and it was awesome. Our athletes loved it. I didn't think they would show up for that.
That's huge. Having that flexibility and you the willingness to say, get after it, get out there, let's see what happens. And if it works, great, which it sounds like it does. But if not, we'll learn from it and keep it moving.
Yep, and now you have like the app, right, to be able to scale those things. So they think of brick and mortar like more from an R&D standpoint, So now how do we take that same conversation digitally? Because I Jordan Shaw is one of the greatest in the world at what he does, and he trains our athletes. He's helping me build our business. And now you have a voice like that in this community. We can reach so many people.
Yeah. Maybe a couple more questions before we get you out of here. You mentioned kind of at the onset, thinking about as this continues to grow, the brand kind of leading the way, the opportunity then that it creates, whether it's in supplements, partnerships, apparel, of course, as you mentioned, tough times right now, just broader economic challenges, figuring out what's what, where you invest resources, what makes the most sense. Are some of those things, whether it's supplements, apparel, or otherwise, kind of, on the back burner for now? Do you have kind of an idea of what you would want that to become as the kind of rest of the, economy and investors and everything shakes out? How are you thinking about that? What's kind of the big picture vision there?
Yep, being scrappy, leaning into what's working right now, and what's working for us right now is bread. What's working for us right now is our membership from a brick and mortar standpoint. From a unit economic standpoint, we're profitable in Tampa and Weston. What else is working for us is, the engagement and the, response from a digital standpoint. So looking at opportunities to be more efficient there, to drive more traffic there, to utilize our other channels. I mean, we have millions of subscribers and followers on all accounts on both the I Am Athlete side and the House of Athlete side, being more organic in how we reach our athletes and potential athletes. I'm super confident, extremely confident on the product side, the commerce side. But right now, we don't have the people power to be able to scale that, right? So we're more on a partnership side, collaboration side right now. And we could potentially stay there in some of these key categories. But I think that House of Athlete in the future will show up in a cool way, innovative way when it comes to supplements, whether that is us, building out those teams internally or partnering with a major group. And we're having some conversations there. And also on the apparel side, it's extremely hard. But we've had months over the last 3 years where we've done $100,000 or 150,000 without any teams. And it's just more so just using our channels organically. So there's a lot of key learnings there. But right now, it's about building out the infrastructure, creating a healthy business, making sure we're operationally sound, making sure that we're leaning into the brand because when it is time to scale, we're going to scale and we're going to scale fast.
That's awesome. Yeah, being smart about how you continue to push those expansion, right? No shortage of opportunities. And the reason it's obvious pushing into those categories and what you could do just given the following, the brand, the interest. But even on the kind of merch and apparel side, the stuff you guys have put out to date is always on point. So it's like continuing to push that, what it looks like. Yeah, I think there we'll wrap up and thinking about the kind of audience and who's listening, putting them into two camps. Like obviously tell folks where they could come, check it out, get a workout, what to look forward to, but also from the operator standpoint, potential partners, investors, any interest on that side, feel free to kind of give that call to action as well and tell them where they can get in touch or what to look forward to.
Yeah, follow our brand, follow our story, follow our journey. We have HOA Plus in the App Store now. House of Athlete Plus, you got to spell out plus to find it. I think you guys will enjoy that experience, and we're really leaning into the fundamentals there. And if you follow the program, you'll hit your goal. So excited about that. The House of Athlete on Instagram, a ton of information, a ton of content coming out there. You know, you have that houseofathlete.com, a lot of information there. You can spend some time there to really peel back the layers of our story and more of what we're doing and who we're doing it with. And yeah, funding. I think right now, you know, and I love this, right? Because you have some cool people that sit on your show, people that extremely successful, it's been through this phase that I'm going through now. And I love that. Sometimes I don't think we connect with the people that are in it enough. And those people that are in it, when we do connect with them, they're not vulnerable and being truthful of exactly where they're at, right? Like it's cool to say, yes, Brandon Marshall, founder of House of Athlete, we started here and we scaled up to this in 5 years, and here's the success story. The reality is, as you know, startup is hard, entrepreneurship is hard. Sometimes it feels impossible, it feels lonely at times. And that's exactly where I'm at right now. Um, these next 2 weeks are critical for our company. I have to make some big decisions. There's some growth capital available to us. There's some debt available to us. And I have to make some key decisions here. But I do think that whichever way we go, we'll be in position here in 12 months to potentially come out on a serious Series A, potentially raising 30, 40 million to scale. But the decision I make over the next 2 weeks is going to determine a lot.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Both, obviously for you as you go through this decision making, being vulnerable, being truthful about where it is, and thus opening up those doors that, when you go out there and say everything's good, like we're killing it, we're hitting all our numbers, like you're not going to get the help that you need. You're not going doors aren't going to open for you.
That's
Um,
right.
it might be more fun to kind of go out there and hype it up, but um, yeah, having those kind of tough conversations, being truthful about it. But with that, I think the opportunity where you guys are going, how you're positioning it, how you're thinking about it, the level of thought and intention that you're putting into everything, man, I'm pumped to see what happens, and super excited that we got to chat about it a little bit today.
Yeah, definitely a marathon, man. Like that's why I love this part of the conversation. But this will be the last thing I say. It's like, you know, if you're an entrepreneur out there, if you're an operator, if you're trying to have one or two locations, if you're just trying to speak to maybe a couple hundred, a couple thousand people, this may not be for you. You know, you can, through willpower, you can create something successful and need it. But if you're thinking being disruptive, innovating, create a national brand, a global brand, you got to understand that it could take 5, 10, 15 years. And you got to be willing to just stay committed to that process, right? Some of the biggest brands, whether it's Peloton, you got to listen to the story of Peloton and how he started Peloton and all the challenges that he faced. All of these major brands, it's like I was doing this for 5 or 7 years. It takes time and you got to be agile. You got to be able to adapt. You got to be able to listen. You got to be able to be fast as well, right? Like you can't just sit on ideas. You can't just sit on making decisions. Like you got to be quick. It's forever evolving. It's forever moving, and you have to have a good gut. You have to become one with your gut and know when to lean into your gut or maybe bring in outsiders and say, "Hey, is my gut right now?" So it's an interesting journey. I'm excited about it. It's fulfilling for me. It's not about the destination. It's about like, man, all of this, and it's like this is what makes it cool and fun. But I am excited about getting out of this funding phase so I can go back and teach in my damn classes.
Yeah, man. Locked in. Hearing you talk about it, I think everybody should just put that on repeat, listen to it a couple times, strap in, be sure that they're willing to make that type of commitment to go out and, if they choose that path, right, to go on the journey of building a global, disruptive,
That's right.
innovative brand. Man, it's not easy, but damn, is it fulfilling when you get to
That's right.
build something that lasts and change lives, especially in fitness and mental health and helping people kind of live their best life. So yeah, man, it was great chatting today. We're definitely be keeping up with everything you have going on. We got to circle back as you continue to build
Yes, sir.
this brand, and yeah, man, we'll
Success story coming.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Once we get all that back in place, you said 12 months from now we'll be raising that next round and thinking about kind of pushing expansion. We'll be right there with you. We'll catch up and keep it going. So I appreciate you making time and yeah, excited to share this conversation.
Thanks, JV.
One more thing before you head out. Help us spread the word. Take a minute to rate and review the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, or share this episode with a friend. And if you like conversations like this, you'll love the Fit Insider newsletter. We send it every Tuesday. The link is in the description. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you back here next week.